Elam first distinguished himself in the Hollywood industry with his remarkable physical attributes, especially his pronounced misaligned eye. Instead of viewing it as a drawback, he used it to his advantage, developing a naturally eerie or eccentric presence that became his on-screen signature over the course of his 5-decade career. Elam starred in more than 200 motion pictures and television shows. His work in westerns, a genre that seemed practically tailored to his tough, unorthodox appearance and dominating presence, brought him particular fame. His status as the stereotypical bad guy was solidified by movies like Once Upon a Time in the West 1968, Support Your Local Sheriff 1969, and The Night of the Grizzly 1966. Even though Elam frequently gave his characters a distinct blend of humor and menace, viewers were pulled to both his wicked personas and the nuanced humanity he occasionally added, which made him a very memorable figure in every tale he graced. In addition to his work in westerns, Jack Elam showed exceptional versatility by switching across genres with ease. His appearances in comedies, tragedies, and even family-friendly movies demonstrated that his brilliance was not limited to typical casting. His partnerships with other legendary performers and filmmakers of his day demonstrated his expertise, and the regard he received within the business. Elam made an enduring impact on American pop culture with his equally many television performances, which included parts in shows like Bonanza, The Twilight Zone, Gunsmoke, and The Lone Ranger. Jack Elam played Zach Wheeler in The Texas Wheelers, an ABC comedy series that ran from 1974 to 1975. The show was brief but memorable. Elam played a gruff, long-lost father in this miniseries who unexpectedly resurfaces in his kids' lives following the passing of their mother. Zach's unorthodox attempt to parent for kids he hardly knew was the main plot point, which allowed Eli to demonstrate both his comedic timing and his ability to portray a character who, in spite of his shortcomings, had a surprising amount of heart. Despite having only 8 episodes, the series was noteworthy for matching Elam with future celebrities like Gary Busey and Mark Hamill, who would later become well-known throughout the world for his role as Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Critics praised Elam's performance despite the Texas Wheelers' poor box office success and eventual cancellation, pointing to that his gritty demeanor and quirky on-screen persona gave the family-friendly comedy a distinctive edge. Elam showed a readiness to move beyond the gritty western and evil type casting that had characterized a large portion of his previous career by continuing to experiment with odd parts on television. He played the surprising role of Frankenstein's monster in the CBS sitcom Struck by Lightning in 1979. In this oddball comedy, a scientist learns that Dr. Frankenstein was his ancestor and, after a string of hilarious incidents, finds himself living with a monster. Elam was a perfect fit for this unusual part, which combined humor and the ridiculousness of portraying a legendary horror figure in a light-hearted sitcom. Because to his unique facial features and quirky appeal, the show, regrettably, never found a viewer and was cancelled after only 3 episodes, leaving the remaining 8 episodes unaired in the US. Interesting to note that all 11 episodes were eventually broadcast in the UK in 1980, providing viewers there with an opportunity to witness Elam's peculiar comedy turn, which is still somewhat of a mystery in his lengthy career. Elam kept making appearances that demonstrated his flexibility until the 1990s. In an episode of the wildly popular sitcom Home Improvement's first season, he played Hick Peterson. Birds of a Feather Flock to Taylor is the title of the episode. Elam had the opportunity to appear on TV alongside Ernest Borg, another Hollywood icon, in Season 1, Episode 20. The plot centered on quirky people and their amusing encounters with Tim Allen's Taylor family, and Elam's performance showed that he still had a keen sense of humor. For viewers who recalled him as a threatening bandit in westerns, Elam's ability to inject humor into a contemporary family sitcom demonstrated the breadth of his acting abilities. Elam's portrayal of Dr. Nicholas Van Helsing, a self-described insane proctologist in the 1981 action comedy movie The Cannonball Run, to solidify his reputation for quirky humor on the big screen. With an all-star cast that included Dom DeWeese, Farrah Fawcett, and Burt Reynolds, Hal Needham's picture was a hilarious cross-country motor race full with ridiculous characters and slapstick hilarity. One of the most unusual aspects of the movie was Elam's portrayal of the eccentric doctor, which demonstrated his talent for elevating even the most minor part into something unforgettable. Elam returned to the part 3 years later in the sequel Cannonball Run 1984. Since his performance was so well praised, his antics and comic unpredictable behavior have once again delighted spectators. Elam starred in the 1986 movie The Aurora Encounter, which is frequently referred to as a weird western due to its peculiar fusion of science fiction and western themes. Elam portrayed Charlie Henkins in this production, a village drunk whose bizarre actions added to the strange tone of the movie. One of the most significant personal relationships Elam has ever had occurred while filming this film. He got to know Mickey Hayes, an 11-year-old Texas child with progeria, a rare disorder that accelerates aging. On set, Elam and Hayes developed a remarkable friendship in spite of their disparate ages and life situations. Later, their friendship was captured in the 1987 movie I Am Not a Freak. which demonstrated how much the two loved one another and how Elam's compassion and kindness were just as evident off-screen as his magnetism was on. Elam once said, "You know, I've met a lot of people, but I've never met anybody that got next to me like Mickey." This may be an apocryphal but frequently cited comment. In contrast to his tough man personas, Elam's relationship showed a more sensitive and caring side. In the same year, Elam co-starred in the comedic series Easy Street, further broadening his television resume. He portrayed Lonnie Anderson's character L.K. Maguire's impoverished uncle, Alvin Bully Stevenson. The comedy centered on an improbable living arrangement where Anderson's character, an affluent socialite, shares her opulent home with her working-class relatives, leading to a great deal of humorous strife. AM's character was a natural source of amusement because of his charming yet awkward traits. Despite Easy Street's brief run, Elam's appearance enhanced the sitcom. His combination with Anderson gave viewers a humorous contrast between rough-edged charm and Hollywood glitz. Elam and Willie Nelson, an icon in country music, collaborated on the 1988 television western film Where the Hell's That Gold. Delta Burke also starred in the comedy western romp, which featured larger-than-life characters, double crosses, and a treasure hunt. Elam was able to revisit well-known western area thanks to his performance, but with the usual humorous touch. Both men gave a laid-back, easygoing spirit to their performances, which enhanced the film's appeal. When Elam was admitted into the Hall of Great Western Performers at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in 1994, his lengthy and illustrious career was formally acknowledged. He shared this distinction with some of the most illustrious figures in Western film and television history. The induction was a worthy homage to a performer who had helped to establish the Western genre's lasting legacy in addition to defining himself with iconic, comedic and villainous roles for both admirers and co-workers. Elam's induction into the Hall of Great Western Performers was evidence of his adaptability, durability, and the lasting impact he had on American entertainment. People frequently recall Jack Elam's craggy face, his trademark lazy eye, and his ability to steal almost any scene he was in, either as a comic, or later in his career, or as a villain in a western. Behind the scenes, however, Elam was seen as a man who didn't hold back when expressing his opinions. He had deep feelings regarding almost every person he had ever collaborated with. Additionally, Gary Cooper, the renowned star of vintage Hollywood dramas and westerns, was one performer that really annoyed him. Gary Cooper was hailed as one of his generation's best movie stars. He was well known for his modest demeanor, his ability to express strength in a few words, and his peaceful dignity. He was seen by many as the epitome of a Western hero. However, Cooper embodied nearly everything Jack Elam found objectionable in the leading males of Hollywood's golden age. Cooper had been overrated, in Elam's opinion, and his alleged natural acting was essentially just hanging around and muttering while everyone else did the job. As Elam once put it, in interviews and on movie sets, Elam would frequently share anecdotes about his unflattering interactions with Cooper. "I was never impressed by Gary Cooper." According to reports, Elam claimed to be there all the time. Critics would deem it wonderful when Cooper would murmur a line in his low voice while these outstanding character performers carried a scene and gave it their all. "I never witnessed genius. I came across a man who made a living by wearing a cowboy hat." Elam's dislike of Cooper stemmed in part from what he saw as his lack of work ethic. Cooper coasted on his star power, according to Elam, who himself worked relentlessly to master even little roles, frequently arriving on set early and remaining late to go over dialogue. "Without a doubt, if you asked me who I thought was lazy, I would say Gary Cooper," Elam once said. "He didn't practice. He wasn't a hard worker. If the scene gleamed, it didn't matter to him. All he wanted was to finish it and earn his payday. The rest of us, meanwhile, were perspiring to make it all work." Elam was also deeply offended by Cooper's treatment of other people on the set. Cooper was perceived by many as kind and restrained, but Elam had a different opinion of him. Elam observed, "People said he was a gentleman. Perhaps if you were a beautiful actress or the president of a studio, he didn't care about you. Though if you were just a working character person like myself, he hardly gave you a look. I don't respect that at all." This kind of distance was unacceptable for a man like Elam, who took great satisfaction in being approachable and kind with everyone, from the biggest star to the stagehand. Elam may have been most enraged by the way spectators and critics praised Cooper, even when he gave dull performances in Elam's opinion. Cooper's Academy Award for High Noon, in Elam's opinion, was among the most ill-deserved in movie history. An Indian from a cigar shop may have performed the same in that position. Elam laughed, but everyone bowed down because it was Cooper. "I never got it," as forthright as ever. Elam once summed up his thoughts by comparing Gary Cooper to wallpaper. "He was present. You didn't notice him until someone told you to, even though he occupied the entire area. Nevertheless, he somehow rose to prominence in the film industry. That, in my opinion, speaks more to Hollywood's fixation on appearance than skill, notwithstanding his critiques." Elam admitted that Cooper had his loyal followers and that the public yearned for his persona as the tall, stoic cowboy. Nevertheless, Elam continued to voice his displeasure. Elam acknowledged that he was the American hero, but only because it was the perception that people wanted to hold. He was by no means the greatest performer. Even though he wasn't the best performer in the majority of his films, the studios were satisfied with his appearance. Ultimately, Jack Elam's distaste for Gary Cooper stemmed from his long-standing annoyance with Hollywood's propensity to exalt leading males while ignoring the gritty, industrious character actors who gave movies their spirit. Cooper represented that disparity and the injustice of a system that valued appearance and aura over depth and effort, in Elam's opinion, and that was something that a man like Jack Elam, who based his professional success on unwavering perseverance and a strong work ethic, could never forgive. Jack Elam had 2 marriages. The first, to Jean Louise Hodred, lasted from 1937 until her death on January 24, 1961. From colon cancer, Elam remarried in August 1961. 7 months later, to Margaret M. Jennison. Jack passed away from congestive heart failure at their Ashland, Oregon, home on October 20, 2003, after 42 years of marriage.